Calling to order pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. That means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting virtually. The meeting may be accessed remotely via the Zoom information provided. When required by law or allowed by the chair, people wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so remotely. Additionally, this meeting may be broadcast later via the town YouTube channel and Topsfield Cable TV. And for open meeting law purposes, notification that this meeting has, due to the weather and the closing of town hall, this meeting has been transferred from a in-person and remote hybrid meeting to a remote only, and signs have been placed on the front and back doors of town hall saying as such and directing people to hear. So there, open meeting law, we are covered. Jumping in, our agenda today is to review the meeting minutes. There's a Zoom user. I'm going to admit that. I'm guessing that might be Kevin, but we'll see. And there is meeting minutes, updating current events, town budget, water budget. Greg is on. So we'll see if that's Kevin. I can't tell if that Zoom user is Kevin. If not, I think either way, I think I'd prefer to go to Greg first, just if I can change the order, just be respectful of his time and have him go first. And then, because Kevin's going to have to, and Amanda are going to have to stay on anyway. So let's get those that can go play in the snow off. Or maybe Greg doesn't want to play in the snow anymore. Accessors is going to get pushed to next week. Unfortunately, not able to do that one. So why don't we start with meeting minutes? I'm sorry, I'm pulling up my computer this one is slow. So bear with me. I want to put them on the screen so at least we have them, and then there we go. And slowly, I promise you it's loading. I promise you, I see a word. I see another word. Another word can't do this because the dialog box is open. Okay, so, okay. Yeah, Kevin's texting me saying, I feel like I'm playing the, no, you're not. Kevin, there is no one in the waiting room.
We could see his picture on Zoom user, but it's gone now for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. Sorry.
There you go. There you go. So you are there.
I'm here.
How are you putting a tie on?
Do you shovel in a jacket and tie?
Yeah, like 3 versions I wore today for each time I went out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now and that was a perfect timing because that allowed me to get the meeting minutes to, but it's not letting me share. There we go. The meeting minutes to show. If this thing, again, seems to be slow. There we go. All right, so we have the meeting minutes. As usual, I've read them, but as usual,
Oh, there we go.
They're as comprehensive as we've grown to expect from Heidi, and we're appreciative of that. Anybody have any comments, questions, motions?
So the only thing that I wasn't sure, since we didn't discuss it during our meeting, you'll notice in item 3B, there's an asterisk at the end of the paragraph.
Yep,
and I just
100K.
put that, that reference at the bottom about the net school spending requirement, how much because Dave had asked about what's the maximum funding for each of those reserve accounts for special ed. So
Yeah.
I was, I get them all both confused too. So I just put it at the bottom, but I think maybe Alyssa knows that both of them are subject to the net school spending limit. It's
Yeah.
just how you can access the funds that's different.
I think there's a difference in that the reserve fund is the 2% of net school spend, and the stabilization has a higher limit. It's not subject to that.
Yeah.
Haven't been able to get a straight answer from Steve as to what the upper limit would be, but again, I think it's multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
The reserve fund is the one that we can access during the school year with a vote of the select board and school committee. And then
Right.
the stabilization is the one that requires town meeting.
Right.
I'm going to be wrong here, at least, Alyssa, but
Yeah.
I remember it as 4 or 5% of spend is what the stabilization had. It was literally a $400,000 or $500,000.
Yes, I think that's what I think too. 4 or
Somewhere-
500,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something we won't get close to.
$50,000, $100,000 a year. Keep plugging, and suddenly, it's funny how quickly 12 years go by. All right, so then maybe we just pull that section out. Maybe say something, Heidi, to the tune of that the fund balances may not have specific limits. Just say general limits, and moving from there to, and then the only other thing is bring each fund's total to approximately 100K, because you do get interest on those. They do accumulate interest. Might be a small amount, but
Okay.
okay. Anybody have any other? Anybody have anything else?
Nope.
No.
Can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended just now.
Second.
We have a first, we have a second. Because we're online, we have to do this as a roll call. So Heidi,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
David,
I,
Michael,
Aye.
Shay, aye. Roll call approves with 6 members present, all voting in the positive. Shay, David, Heidi, Michael, Tom are present. Michael Canaris and Catherine, and then just for records, Michael Hartman is not present today. All right, that's the town meeting minutes. And now let me get, that's not the one I want. You guys are still seeing my screen, I know. That's perfectly fine, but I want to get back to the agenda. There it is. All right, next on our order is current events. We'll go around the room. I'm going to hold on town current events again, because I think if without objection, I'd like to get to, since from Kevin, from you, or from Amanda, because I'd like to get through Greg's water stuff so we can let him go. I suspect, with everything going on, it's been a busy week for him, and I'd like to get him in and out, and then we can do the town events for others. But if there are anything, let's do it this way. Are there any current events associated with water or town that we should be water or specific to areas that we should be aware of, or anything? And then we can jump to Greg.
Not for me.
Okay. David?
Nope.
Nothing?
Nope.
Okay, David, Greg, you're on, I believe, right? And you're on mute,
Sure,
right?
I think Greg knows everybody except
Yeah.
Michael Canaris.
Yeah.
Tom and I met with Greg last week just to go over the budget, answered a lot of questions. I think it's straightforward. I'll just turn it right over to Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, our budget this year is pretty straightforward. Salary and wages are based on guidelines for the non-union personnel. The union contract expires at the end of this fiscal year, so their amounts are level funded. Remains to be seen and negotiated what they actually change to. The other section is slightly the negative, and that's largely because we've made some progress on our unaccounted for water and the amount of water that we have to pump and treat each year. It has gone down, so we've been able to cut back on the electricity and water treatment supplies budget. And there's been some rebalancing of different line items in the other section, but overall it's in the negative. The big issues are in the debt portion of the budget, and this version that you have tonight is going to be changed. Discussions with the select board have revealed that some of the larger capital items like the PFAS treatment and the pressure zone study projects are going to be delayed for, possibly another year. So the debt section will likely, those costs will go down, as well as those short-term borrowing costs will go down, as well as the reserve fund will likely go down as well. So
The
only
reserve
real-
fund, sorry, the
Oh,
reserve
excuse me,
fund will go down?
the reserve fund?
Yeah, is that what you said?
Yes. Whenever we have a large capital project coming up, we usually gradually increase the reserve fund to approximate where we're going to be for a long-term debt number. And since those projects have been pushed off, we're not going to ramp up any more than we already have for the tank and for the water main.
So
So the reserve,
sorry.
so the reserve fund will drop as a result of that, because the ramp won't start this year. It'll likely start next year instead.
Okay. So contributions to the reserve fund from the enterprise won't happen, will be less or won't happen this year.
It'll be less. Usually we'd like to have it around 125,000.
Sure.
That's kind of the floor. So it'll likely go down to that level.
Okay.
Assuming that we go out to permanent bond for the tank project and the water main project in fiscal 27.
Okay.
Our indirect costs also went down a little bit, largely I think because we were short a few employees at the end of last fiscal year, which lowered some of the costs.
Greg, just to clarify, make sure I understood. The electricity, actually, the budget went down, which is highly unusual because everybody knows electricity's rates are going up. The reason is you've been able to eliminate a lot of leaks. Therefore, you don't pump as much water. Is that
That's correct?
Correct.
Our cost per kilowatt hour, I think, is by contract, so that's staying the same. It's just we're going to be using fewer kilowatt hours.
If anyone looked at the omnibus, you'd see a massive number for electricity for the water department. I think it's 500,000, Greg.
No, I think it's like 120,000 or so.
Okay.
It's still a big number, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit less than we expected for this fiscal year.
Greg, did you say that the union contract ends next year? So
It ends at the end of 26. This June 30th of this year it ends. And because it's going to be in negotiations, we level fund it.
thank you.
Michael, just so you're aware, or anyone who doesn't remember, That's why we have a salary reserve, is that we put a salary reserve off to the left, off to the side. And that addresses any, is intended to address any first year expenses from contract changes.
Okay.
I think we don't have a salary reserve in the water budget, so if it's not something we can absorb, then it'll have to be some sort of transfer to make up the difference.
Okay,
Right.
that's right, because it's the enterprise.
Yeah. So that transfer would come out of retained earnings then, right, Greg?
Well, usually we could take it out of unanticipated emergency or the reserve fund. It'll come out of probably likely one section of the budget that's in front of you, unless we do a transfer at the special town meeting
Okay.
in May of 27.
Yep.
Other questions on the budget? Okay, Greg, from my perspective, PFAS continues to be the elephant in the room, I guess. At this point, or at least that's the big elephant that we have in the room. There are other, I don't know.
There are lots of
maybe-
elephants.
Yeah. Maybe there's a couple rhinos or something else, but the big one, the elephant, is the PFAS, I believe. Has there been any material change in the direction or what you're hearing about that from federal, state, knowing that also that federal kind of is going to swing more and more probably every 4 years or 8 years or whatever. So,
Well, there's been some movement on the federal end. They did extend the deadline from April of 2029 to April of 2031.
okay,
Which is helpful. There's some discussion that they may try and undo it all and get rid of the requirement altogether.
Okay.
You know, in Massachusetts, DEP has primacy for drinking water, so they're in charge of drinking water regulations, and the EPA only gets involved if they don't think DEP is doing a good job.
right,
Conversations I've had with people from the DEP is they like the feds, the EPA's 4 parts per trillion number, and they have until April of this year to update their regulations. And from what I understand, they are going to adopt the 4 part per trillion rule. So it looks like even if it went away entirely on the federal level, the state would still stick to that number. But if the federal number goes away entirely, then that gives DEP some flexibility as to timelines. But right now, I hear they're likely going to adopt that number.
okay. Anybody have questions any other questions on that? And that's a substantial, I mean, even at 4 parts per trillion, that's a substantial cost to our water for you. And I mean, millions.
It is, and it gets complicated because a lot of moving parts. But basically, we'd be looking at 3 options. You know, we'd have the option of building essentially another set of filter vessels in a new building to treat the water on what would be more of a permanent solution. The other options are something more temporary, depending on how the North Shore Water Task Force proceeds.
Yeah.
You could lease a system or purchase a temporary system to bide some time until the regional system is up and running. But right now, everything, and one of the reasons why I think the select board decided to delay a little bit is we don't know exactly what the DEP is going to require. We don't know exactly what the North Shore Task Force is going to produce, and there's just too many unknowns to ask for, you know, a $10 or $12 million project at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody have other questions on PFAS? Any other questions? I've got one more, but anybody else?
Yeah. Do we normally talk about capital items, Che, too, with water?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, Greg, if you want to go through those. You know, the open ones, I understand some are open still.
Yeah, the PFAS is being delayed. The other big capital project, the pressure zones are being delayed. This would have been another year for meter replacements, which is also, it doesn't appear on your list, but that got delayed. We're requesting some money for, it's a large item repair fund. I think it's $50,000. That is to cover expenses that's happened fairly regularly, but not regularly enough to have in the operating budget. And it's, you know, for instance, in the last year, we've had to rebuild 2 finished water pumps at the treatment plant to the tune of about $20,000 each. We have a third that has to be rebuilt in the next summer or this coming summer. And also the mixer at the Garden Street tank needs to get replaced, and the cost of just the mixer, never mind installation, is about $15,000. So this would cover some of those expenses.
Did I hear you say the pressure zone was being delayed?
Yes, I think that's going to end up being delayed.
Okay.
We have a draft report outlining what areas to work on, but I think there's some issues with it that have to get resolved before we can finalize the report.
Yeah, when we met, you said you weren't totally satisfied with the report and you needed some more engineering work. That was, if I recall.
I think the modeling work, the hydraulic modeling work, I think is done. It's just that there's some issues in the report. For instance, the report references places that have less than 35 PSI of pressure, which, you know, DEP regs are places, you have to address places that have less than 20 PSI pressure under fire flow. So it's a higher bar than what we're required to do, or we're required to meet. So we have to basically, you know, redefine where those breakpoints are in the system and who needs a pressure zone and who doesn't. Because right now I think it's likely overly the number of people is much larger than needed to meet the DEP requirements. So we're going to kind of revisit that and go over some of the costs that they outlined as particularly the construction costs for some of these remedies. Those are the areas
When we met, Greg, you brought up another opportunity, and that's replacing some of the big pumps with much more efficient electric motors and pumps. And
Yes.
if I remember, it had a very fast payback, a couple of years. So my question is, if I understood that correct, are you considering even moving ahead proposing that?
I think, yes, once we have more clarity on where everything is going to be going, I think that makes sense to move ahead with that. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of things we can do outside of the town process. There's grants we can get from the state and from National Grid to work on those projects and provide most of the funding. I would think, based on my conversations with some of the engineers from National Grid. So my intent would be they want to do a study to find out exactly how much cost savings there can be and how much energy savings, and proceed along with that, and then see where we're at. And if it makes sense based on how long the pumps are going to be in service, you know, if we're going to eventually switch over to regional system, how long is that likely going to take? How long is the payback? And what are the funding sources between National Grid and the state? I think it would be good to follow through with those if we have the time.
And what was exciting about your idea, though, is the very fast payback in electricity, which is, you know, a massive number for you. So it really seemed like a very straightforward, obvious.
I think in large part, it's because we don't really have to pay for a lot of the work, you know, which just accelerates it and it makes the payback even faster.
Sure.
The gross cost is probably not a fast payback, but when you get all the grants and everything, it becomes someone else is covering that.
Yeah.
to justify good behavior, good choices, long term. We'll take it.
Yep.
Okay. All right, anybody else have anything else?
Are there any capital projects in? Greg, I'm not sure
Not like no water main projects, no tank projects. It's all fairly small items this year.
Okay,
We had been talking about the PFAS and the pressure zones, but
right,
those are the only two big ticket items.
okay.
All right. Anybody if that's the last question? For Greg, any final concerns? Last chance? Going once? Twice? Greg, thank you as always. Appreciate you coming and thank you for talking with us and have a great evening.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Now we can back to the rest of our scheduled program. We talked water budget. Next was review the initial town budget. A reminder I want to make to everybody, which is this is initial, right? So everybody's still working through things. So whether it's because there's questions about other stuff, whether it's because there's unknown clarity on something, or because it's someone's first proposal. We are going to all then talk about it, as is the select board, and we're going to come to a strategy, and then we're going to opine in a larger way on it. I'd like us to just keep in the back of our heads that dialogue is good, and getting information early is good. So let's just take that information and use it in here and discuss it. And if there's objections or questions, ask them away. But we want to make sure that we are all continuing to consider and understand what's going on and work through that from there. We'll go off of that. I'm going to start on the town side. I'm trying to pull up the docs. Kevin, we're going to do so current events that are non-water. Does anyone have any elementary schools, colleges, Masco updates? Any other police, fire, anything? Any questions or updates?
Yeah, so Masco, they presented their preliminary budget on the 21st, and it represents a 4.8% increase in general operations expenditures, but a decrease in funding sources, which one of those sources is that 712,000 hole that we knew was going to happen. And they offered their first scenario of eliminating 10 teaching positions and using a 3% above budget as the threshold rather than 4% to cut down the operating assessment to about 3%. But obviously that's going to be that's going to be challenged.
Yeah.
And also I can go ahead.
Did-
I'm sorry.
Was there any, has there been any meetings or any back channel on that 3% versus 4%? Because a small part of me goes, I get it, but you didn't learn your lesson last year, right? You're actually changing policy in this proposal to use so you can use more one-time funds on your budget.
Right. So no, I mean, I haven't spoken to anybody about that.
Okay.
But last on the 14th, Adrienne, Melissa, Raphael, and I met again. We continued to share documents. I've been giving them information about, I've been mapping out the general ledger codes because there's a lot of movement between the actual reporting that they do to the state, between the budget line items that they have and the way they report it to the state. So there might be a way that they can really reorganize how they're reporting things at the budget line item level so that we can really see budgets to actuals and make, have additional questions about why are they budgeting in under this line item when the actuals are not really there. So Adrian seemed to be really, happy that thinking that what I'm providing to them is going to be helpful in producing some questions for the administration. And we're going to be meeting again on the 4th. I think, I think you were going to be able to meet with us then. But I was able to revise that foundation budget to their budget, again, a vertical analysis, so not dollar for dollar, but percentage wise. And administration is higher. Special ed obviously is higher. Benefits are higher, and teaching and other teaching services are lower than the foundation percentages. So there's
when you
room
say
here
other-
for discussion.
Yeah, other teaching services, what does that mean? Meaning all teaching, or is that the,
Well, so that's like the paraprofessionals, and that's one of those
Okay.
examples.
Yeah.
That's one of those examples that it's in that line item in the budget, but maybe it's in a different place when they finally report it.
Yeah.
So, it's just the potential is there to just ask questions.
Mhm.
Overall, it looked like when I did the budgets to actuals for the fiscal year 25, they were over budget. Now, again, that's the expenditure side, not necessarily the revenue side. They were over budget by just over $200,000.
Okay.
So there's a lot of questions for the details. They also, in the presentation, the calendar said that their budget deliberations would end and, they'd adopt the final budget on March 18th. But Adrian had sent us an updated schedule and said they were shooting for March 11th.
Awesome. Much appreciated for that. Any other questions? Any questions anyone else has on Masco? On just the most recent set of updates?
Yeah, Heidi or Che, do you know when we get the number on the apportionment? In other words, what our share is?
We got that.
So we know what,
Yeah, it's,
I'm thinking about the guideline budget, Che. Last year, the first override was based, and I was
Yeah.
curious if we could calculate that if we had that.
yeah, we can do that. We have that data to do it. We haven't done it yet, but there's if I remember correctly, it's under a 1% swing, but about a 1% more towards us.
We'd pay 1% more or less.
More.
I
So
think.
this, remember, part of this is that we had a 5-year, it's a
That's
5-year
correct.
average.
Right.
So we're getting, honestly, we've got the advantage in the past couple of years because our enrollment percentage has gone up, that it's kind of lagged. So unless ours materially drops, because each year we have a greater percentage than the 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Until that changes, it softens that turn.
So the guideline budget for us would probably be about 3.25% up, roughly. The guideline plus 1%, is that?
Well, coming off of our 2.25, it's probably
Right.
close to 3.
Yeah,
think.
3.25.
No, I don't think it's 1. I think we're under 1, like around
Oh,
0.8.
okay. That's good. That's an improvement over last year.
Yeah. But
What was the
Yeah,
swing
that number
last
would be
year?
very helpful because I think we can pin it down right now.
Michael, what was that?
I was saying, what was this? If we're saying just the demographic swing this year is an extra just under 1%, what was it last year? Was it significantly bigger than that?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Last year's, there's 2 parts to that, right? There's the actual demographic swing for the year. And then there's the fact that that's 1 year and a 5-year rolling average.
Mm-hmm.
And our average has been for 5 years has been consistently taking more. So you have a low year dropping off and you have a high year, less growth, less delta than past years, but it's still more than the low year. So it's a combination of the 2 that's hitting us.
Okay.
Last year we had a noticeable change in our significant change, a few, a percent or plus in our enrollment number, our percentage of the total enrollment. That makes sense. So this year our enrollment number didn't massively change. So more of this is just the lagging softening of that spike. That's Masco. Any other updates?
Nope, there are no changes for elementary since the last time we spoke.
Okay.
They should be finalizing, they will be finalizing their budget after our February, is it 9th? I think it's our February 9th meeting.
I'm so appreciative of the elementary school and the Masco adjusting as much as they can to give us the time to do what we need to do. So
Yeah.
thank you. And we'll pass that along next Wednesday, the 4th, to to Masco as well for their willingness to at least come back that week. So at least it gives us the base time that we need.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to Kevin, to you, are there any other updates from any of the FinCom members that they want to cover? No. I know Kevin has a couple of updates he wants to share before we jump into the budgets, but I wanted to just check. So going once, going twice. Kevin, it's all yours.
Thank you. Well, first, I'm sorry. I keep moving the computer, but this halo keeps following me. So I don't know if that's a sign for tonight, but we're just going to roll with it. So I have some good news and some not so good news to share from a financial standpoint, strictly financial. First one is Essex Tech.
Yeah, go with the less than good news first.
Yeah, I always like to end with the better news, right? So again, I want to emphasize this is just a financial conversation. You know, there's Essex Tech is a part of ours. Lots of cool students in our community take advantage of it, and 16 other communities as well. They've been doing some really great work over there. This year, the state mandated, instead of a merit-based enrollment process, a random lottery process. And associated with that, they had to create sort of some guardrails to make sure there was some proper allotment of students from different towns. And what they did is a subcommittee was created, and over 6+ months. They came up with taking the average 3-year enrollment for the freshman class as the minimum target for next year's freshman class. So in essence, keeping it flat, right? You're taking an average over 3 years. It's not going to be any major ups or downs. They had that out. They had a number of meetings, and right before the subcommittee was going to meet to vote that to bring it to the general school committee at Essex Tech, the Big Four, I'm going to refer to them as the Big Four, which is Danvers, Peabody, Salem, and Beverly, said time out, hold on. There's been too much overall growth over the previous 10 years plus for enrollments in our communities and others. And that was the initial narrative, which I was a part of. I said, I have no problem having a conversation around what's the future look like at Essex Tech, because the overall growth will have an impact on us, but it'll be spread across all 17 communities. In short order, that narrative changed to, we want to take the number of eligible 8th graders who could go to Essex Tech out of each community and have that be a proration of the whole. What it does is it basically takes Danvers, Beverly, and Peabody and drops their numbers significantly and spreads those seats over other communities like Topsfield and Marblehead. Basically 14 of the other communities have an increase, 10 of which have significant increases, including Topsfield. So our initial proposal, and what historically has been our trend for freshman enrollment, has been 7 students. They're now targeting 15 students for Topsfield.
Wow.
And so I know I had the same rate.
So we go from 28 to 60.
Over the next 4 years. Starting this year, we would grow by 8 students. And the way it works is, if there's less applicants than the number, then you don't have, obviously you can't fill it. But if you have 15 applicants, all 15 are guaranteed one of those seats. We have 32 applicants this year. And so if half the students decide that they want, a little less than half the students decide that they want to come here to go to Essex Tech, they'll have a seat guaranteed for them.
Wow.
This will have a significant impact over the next 4 years. upwards of over doubling what our allotment is, which is around $500,000 currently before any escalation for debt or operational costs that we see in their operating budget year over year over year. Roughly 100,000+ right now that 125,000 is what we would estimate right now. Our increase would be right now just for enrollment, which is an override, right? We know we're tight this year on all fronts. I don't think the funds will be there necessarily, but it's a conversation we'll have to have. Is it an override? What do we do with it? But it's a big number that we were not expecting. Pause for a second. I do want to say that this is all happening in real time. They voted on it late last week. And the reason they changed is because the big four were putting a full political press on. But I was assured by highest of members of Essex Tech that this had no real traction because it was such a dramatic change for the smaller communities to take that burden on. Marblehead's going from 10 to 39 in 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah. They're going to have multiple $1 million in new money just to cover their Essex Tech allotment. So
Marblehead, let's think Marblehead has a disadvantage of they're not a co-op, they're a single school district. So that's 20, 30 kids being pulled out of their high school that they still have to pay all their expenses for their high school. I mean, we're getting 15, 15, 15 across 3 districts. It's painful. Think about that. I mean, so.
Oh, no, that's 15 for Topsfield, Mr. Chairman. So Boxford's
15,
going up
16, it's 14, 15, 16. So it averages out to 45.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're saying that they take the average. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in essence, though, right now, I was in some of the early conversations when they were talking about overall growth, and then when it pivoted, it was unexpected. They pivoted. The PUD superintendent made a proposal at one of these meetings we were at, and just the reaction from the subcommittee was not good. I talked with the superintendent after the meeting. I said, I support the overall conversation on overall growth. I do not support, nor would any of the other small communities support, a 1-year drastic change that's being proposed. Superintendent assured me that she didn't feel like this would be something that would get traction, although she's not a voting member. I did find out that how it played out at the end of last week was my biggest concern, as much as it is the financial component, is the process that was taken. We had months and months to review what they initially came up with, and now 24 hours before their meeting, they sent us the plan last week and then voted on it and passed it. And this was a plan that the superintendents from the Big Four produced, not with any consideration or feedback from the smaller communities within Essex Tech. I also have grave concerns that if we have a larger allotment of larger seats, communities, Peabody or Salem or Beverly, that have grown exponentially, they have higher application rates, and they have potentially less likelihood to go to a 4-year college than maybe children who are going to Topsfield or Boxford or Middleton, et cetera, who go to Essex Tech and then pursue a 4-year degree, which is great, but not necessarily the intention. And those seats are very valuable for people within the entire 17 community that they're going to the kids that need it. This could be a life changing for somebody who's looking to go into the trades, whose seats now being taken by a community that hasn't historically had that many students participating. So I'm having a lot of conversations in the last 24 hours with the mayors of the other communities, as well as the smaller communities. I've spoken with almost every one of the smaller communities today during our snowstorm. All of them were shocked about how drastic it was, and that it actually passed without any further conversations. But more, I want to keep it on everyone's radar that this could be a reality, because it sounds like they've already voted. My goal right now is to try to put a pause, put the genie back in the bottle, let everyone around the table fairly and equitably to have a discussion, and then possibly come up with an alternative plan, or give us at least a year to start talking about drastic changes, because doing it in a 24-hour period from submitting the plan to voting on it is completely irresponsible in my mind. So that's out there. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yeah. Questions or comments from anyone?
Kevin, what's the likelihood you can put a pause on this? I mean, and what would be the plan for that? Would you go to a meeting and ask for that, or does Topsfield have a representative on that group?
We do. I met with him before the vote, the day before, Adam. Had a good conversation. We were all lined up. The superintendent made this proposal, as I understand it, at the meeting. So when the administration makes the proposal, it's different than when the superintendent's. I've had 3 or 4 correspondences via email and phone messages with the superintendent about getting a meeting for tomorrow. My plan is to have a one-on-one and then go from there. And if we need to get the other 9 communities that are going to have anywhere from 50% increases to 400% increases in 1 year, I think there's going to be a lot of finance committees, a lot of select boards, and a lot of town administrators and finance teams that are going to be concerned with this. And I don't know, Tom, if we can put the genie back in the bottle per se.
Yeah.
But I'm also advocating to my relationships with the big 4 to say, we need to think about this differently. If we come up with an alternative plan that the board will then vote, would you support that? Because I think they picked winners and losers in this scenario. If we could find a scenario where everybody maybe understands it, we come up with a plan, maybe some have a little bit of hurt, not necessarily such drastic changes over a stepped period of time. Maybe that makes sense if the data backs it up. But for right now, this felt very reactionary, and I'm shocked that is what it is at the moment.
Yeah, I just didn't know. And Che, maybe you would chime in on this, but would it make sense to have some type of letter addressed to the superintendent there from the finance committee, just addressing the financial impacts from that? And maybe we could get together with Middleton and Boxford and do some type of joint letter.
Yeah. So I think that's great, Tom. I personally, I would add, it's more than just the finance. I mean, ultimately, Kevin alluded to something that I think is very near and dear to my heart with, in general, with vocational schools, and the fact, and you've all heard me speak to this, what those 4 towns did is they effectively voted to limit the number of kids in their towns who have access to, to reduce, let me be clear, reduce the number of kids that have access to vocational schools. I mean, these are the towns, respectfully, it's not we're a better town, worse town. It's just economically, those are the towns that kids that have a greater population that this can make a major difference for. And those towns, cities, just voted to reduce the opportunity from where it is today, to reduce the opportunity for their towns. It's shocking to me, honestly, but.
So the other thing too, so there's the operational aspect, the opportunities for vocational education. I'm wondering if there's something also at DESE's level with, foundation budgets and community contributions for this financially, if there's, if they're doing it for the right reasons as opposed to the wrong reasons, and there is a financial impact, then how might the state support this community contribution for Essex Aggie,
And I have a call out to our state senator to ask some very similar questions to that, including making sure full scope, and because there's a lot of 17 communities in Essex Tech that are primary, not the agricultural part, but the larger portion of the school. And those are the 7 districts that have a vote. Those are 17 districts that have a vote. And only 3 in this scenario, their enrollment goes down. And it's those 3. And everyone else goes either flat, a couple are flat, the rest go up. And 10 of them, like I said, go up over 50%. And there's a couple that are just mind-boggling, like the Marblehead one. Like, I don't know how you could even put that on paper with any type of justification. But if we can find outside help, Heidi, that would obviously be incredible. But it doesn't solve to the chair's point too. Like, I'm concerned as just a person, making sure that as much as possible, kids who want educations that might not have all the opportunities have those seats available to them at the end of the day. And when you create more limitation, or you go away from what traditionally has been the interest from a certain community to make sure your numbers are your financial components, that's a hard pill to swallow for me, whether I'm representing Topsfield, Beverly, Salem, Marblehead. Gotta make sure the right kids are able to get the education they need.
I agree. And I thought that was the whole purpose and the spirit behind moving to a lottery, was to expand that out, to give the kids who actually, this is the school, it was designed for them, to give them a better opportunity or a better access to getting accepted there, as opposed to the kids who are using it as an alternative to a regular high school and still going on to following the same path on that 4-year degree.
But there's a lot of questions to be answered. I think this happened quietly. It was right during the Mass Municipal Association conference, and I was with a lot of other town administrators, including the one from Marblehead, and he didn't know it passed until I called him today and told him. So I think this was something that was just kind of, it was interesting. And I know I talked to the superintendent. I asked her. She said that she felt very strongly this would not pass, the proposal from the Big Four. And I said, if anything changes, let me know, because I want to make sure I can speak on behalf of Topsfield, but beyond that, the rest of the communities and what these impacts might mean. And I was assured I would. And then the modification came out literally hours before the meeting. So we'll see how that conversation goes when I'm able to meet with the superintendent the next day or two. I'm excited for it.
Essex Tech is designed primarily for vocational training. Why would students that would be inclined to go on to college go to Essex Tech rather than Masco?
Because they can come out. I have my nephew who did it, not at Essex Tech, but at Whittier. I have a person down the street here who did the same thing. 85% of the people that come out of Essex Tech right now, or 80+%, go on to a 4-year college right now.
They've changed the curriculum, David. It's different. It's geared now. They've got technology courses, and they don't have the kind of oversight, from my perspective, on their budget like our high schools do.
So, David, adding to what Catherine has said, I can get something that'll give me a job, and then I can go on to college. Why wouldn't I?
Right.
Right? I can get a skill in electricity or plumbing or automotive or technology or horse husbandry, animal husbandry, or any of these things. And then I can go on to college and I've got another skill. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, I share the concerns that were raised by a number of people, though, that people that could really benefit from the vocational training are getting squeezed out.
Agreed.
That's really a sad scenario. That's why I asked the question. If you're going to college, why don't you stay in Masco? Why wouldn't that be? So I know it's a rhetorical question, but it's frustrating.
Mr. Austin, I'll tell you, it's a beautiful campus. It looks like a college campus. I mean, there's investments through grants and applications for state funding to build the cottage. I was just up there 2 weeks ago getting the last rendition, which was the plan with 7 Topsfield freshmen, getting the explanations from the superintendent. Beautiful space, grant funded, federal fund, state funded facilities. I think one of the bigger arguments, holistic argument has been, there seems to be a big push to push more of the funds available at the state level towards technical high schools, which is a priority of the governor and DESE and et cetera. And I think that that's okay. That's fine. But it does sometimes create a gap and an opportunity to be able to keep up at the local school level too. And that's sort of the bigger argument I heard when we first started these conversations with the Big Four, that sort of became a winners and losers and discussion versus a holistic macro convo. So anyways, a letter would be helpful. Maybe what I can do is I'm, like I said, in the next 48 hours, hoping to meet with the superintendent, have a better handle of her position and what happened. We've had a very candid relationship, especially over the last couple of months while these conversations from the Big Four have been taking place. I've been more of like a side conversation, like, tell me what I need to know versus this is how we need to do it. And I'm interested to see what her explanations are, but maybe after that I can come back to FinCom, because I think a letter from the FinCom, especially a joint one from other communities, I think would carry a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So I'll start reaching out to the FinCom chairs for the other 2 communities. I have a contact, it's too bad he just stepped off of FinCom at Marblehead. He was the chair at Marblehead, but he just stepped off. But I can reach out to him and see if I can get a connection over to Marblehead as well, and see if we can loop in a few of those communities, so we can at least get something and see what their perspective is.
Absolutely. And I'll keep working with the town administrators and managers like I have been too. And I just for Boxford went from the original proposal 3-year average of 12 to 16. Middleton went from 13 3-year average to 14. So Middleton actually
Doesn't
didn't have a major impact. It's basically flat. I don't know if they're going to use any of their gunpowder on this one versus 3, but it's certainly something worth noting for them.
Yeah, I'll check in with them. That's good to know.
Another thing though, like again, the philosophical, vocational training versus college prep. I'm wondering if at Masco, what kinds of offerings they have that are more related to vocational training, and if that might be an area where if we're truly trying to identify what offerings don't overlap and whether there could be some cut, if we're
It's
talking
very
about
limited,
structural
Heidi.
cuts,
Very limited.
as it should be. You know what I mean? If we're identifying the difference between a college prep versus vocational.
Yeah, and understand that the vocational schools have a set of very specific curriculum and tooling and capabilities requirements. So that's why almost no town has their own vocational program anymore, is because it is a very expensive thing to do. It's just, in small numbers, it's exceedingly expensive. And only when you get into larger numbers does it have it. But we'll go from there. All right. So we've got, I think, let me just ask. I would have us vote on a letter before I sent it. But does anyone have concerns with us if you do, it's perfectly fine. But going through the motions of getting something set up and coordinating that and getting a draft in front of you. Does anyone have any concerns with that?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. I'm being lazy here. I don't want to go through all this work, and I'm fine if it's not to find out that we had concerns. That's all it is. I want to make sure everyone has. Okay.
What about the select board signing it, Kevin, as well?
Oh, well, I've talked with our chair as this was progressing, and I've spoke with him today. I think we're all sort of like, this can't really be what they did because it's so significant. But at the same time, realizing that we need to understand, like I said, I am trying to get a meeting with the superintendent, and he said, okay, get that first. He's very pragmatic in that sense. Like, let's get all the info and then we'll go. But he said, there's no way we can do this. This is.
If we want a joint letter, Che, we could pass it by the chair of the select board too, just to get them in the loop.
Either that, or what I was thinking is maybe the select boards do theirs and the FinComs do theirs, and we get a couple letters and we see it.
Fine.
But one way or the other, I
Yeah.
agree. Just long-term consideration. There's other things to look at. Okay.
So
other update now on the less bad news.
Yeah. So well, I've got less bad news than I got bad. I got the third item. I just got updated. I was on the phone. So the good news is that
give us the other bad news first.
no more bad. I was going to leave you with this one. That this would be a good one to leave with, but I'll go with it. So I just got before with Gary Wilds. First of all, the guys did an amazing job last 30 hours, basically keeping our street clean. Kudos to them. Want to say that publicly. Thank you. Gary said just now, we have about another 30, 40 minutes of maybe some little bit of dusting before it wraps up. That said, forecast out shows another nor'easter on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you Tom heard it, but if anyone else, it's not great news. Another big storm. Obviously we got to be mindful of the budget. Obviously priorities keeping public safety and keeping those roads clear, but it's just it's out there. And just for anyone who, like myself, who shoveled for many, many hours today, buckle up. We're going to be doing it again, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, Kevin. I have no more space to put snow.
Yeah.
I know, man.
Oh, come on, guys. Michael, you weren't. Tom, you probably weren't. 2014, 15, 11 years ago, we got 4 of these storms at this size in a row in 6 weeks.
Every Sunday night.
Yep.
I was in a 2-family in Medford that I just bought, and there was nowhere to put the snow then. Let me tell you, I did over the first floor of the porch. It was unbelievable.
My daughter would step off of our garage into the garage roof into the snow.
Yeah.
My kids
So-
literally jumped off the back deck, which
Yeah.
it's a sloped lot.
We might be back after it, everyone. That's
All
so
right,
just
let's bring it.
I don't have any little kids anymore.
How are we doing with the budget?
I know. And why is it always on a Sunday when we have to pay overtime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
holidays. We're really it seems to always
So
hit.
just one reminder for everyone, we should be concerned about this. Snow and ice is the one area we can deficit spend.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So the concern is we have to adjust for it. It's not oh my God, we're in trouble with this year's budget. This year we're active. We have to find something to cut. It's okay, we're gonna have to do a transfer and or have to absorb it into next year's budget, the one we're working on now, if we go over.
So
Okay.
the last bit of updates is health insurance. So this weekend, I mentioned before, I was at the MMA and Maya annual conference. I was in the closed door meeting where on Thursday where they voted whether to continue providing GLP-1 drugs or not as coverage. Blue Cross Blue Shield is no longer covering it. A lot of providers are not covering that or working towards not. They did vote to not cover that starting July 1st. So that is going to be reflected in our rate this coming year. And so they said at the Sunday breakfast publicly, so I'll share the public information, that the average increase will be 8.3% this year. And our loss ratios in Topsfield have been, in the last year, have been better than our target loss ratio. But over the last 24 months, it's pretty close to being at the loss ratio number target of 90 or 0.9. So we probably, in my best estimation, we're somewhere between 8 and 9% is what I'm going to guess we're going to land this year. But we'll probably not, in the past, we won't see that number until likely February, the exact number. But it's better than the 16% that they've been asking us to hold for the last 6 months. That said, and I want to make sure this is said as well, because you can't have the first without the second part of this, is that some of the projections we're seeing for these coming years, not just this year, but out years, our rep and some of the people that I've been starting to work with more closely now have been saying that some of the bigger contracts with the hospitals and the providers are coming up, meaning that their hospitals are coming up to Blue Cross and Harvard Pilgrim and saying, with Medicaid no longer being covered, we still have to service somebody who comes in, even if they're uninsured. We need to bump our pricing up for the health insurance to cover those losses. On top of the specialty drugs, it's not all GLP-1s, especially drugs that are out there in the state times that in the union contracts at the hospitals, they're projecting that even with the GLP-1s knocked off, we could be seeing 15% the following year and 15% the following year after that. It's a long forecast out, right? So anything could change, but that's what some of the conversations I've been having. So although this year we're probably going to be better off than what we had been told because there was a significant change in what the coverage looks like, there's still a pretty good wave coming at us with some of the uncontrollable costs due to some of the federal limitations and coverages, as well as some of just the cost of what it takes to provide services in Massachusetts. So, yeah, that's it. The health insurance one's there, but we'll keep working through that. And I could
before we do,
update
any
everyone.
comments?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Any comments or questions?
No, I mean, that's decent news. I think we're holding like around 12%.
Holding
Or 11?
yeah.
Okay, in our budget. So we can drop that down a couple notches, it sounds like, I guess, but
I would just hold off until we get the number, but yes, the
Yeah.
hope is it south of that, but I would say 11's probably a good number for the moment.
It comes down
Just-
to 60K. It's 60K if it comes down.
yeah.
And when will you have that number?
We'll have usually late February, I think is where they typically give us the the final number. I would also say that's just the current employees. We also have the retirees, and the retirees just went up back in December for the next year was 17%, I believe. So that factors in. So even if it comes in at say 9%, you still have a portion of that coming in at 17% of the whole. So your number is going to be closer to 11 or 12 or 13% as well. So just something to just keep in mind.
Kevin, will you also get the numbers for property and auto and all that in February too from Maya? Do you know?
We actually have a good sense of what that is. We were one of the top 30 customers of Maya last year, and we got a 2-year locked in rate, meaning it won't go up more than 2%. If you give me 1 second, I have it right here. I can tell you what property loss is going to look like next year as well.
Yeah, I know last year you were 0% increase, which was awesome.
We had 0% last. The most will increase is by 2%, but that was months ago. They said that per the 2-year contract we signed with them based on our property and our property loss, and basically they're saying that on average it's going to go down 2% overall for the entire Maya PNC. Early discounts 2.5%, and then if we have that locked in rate, I'm imagining we'll probably be somewhere about a flat rate this year for the PNC insurance. Unemployment's dropping 12% too, but that's a very small line of business that we use.
All right, great.
Yeah, generally better news than we would have expected heading into the meeting. It's not going to necessarily change the overall narrative of we still have a lot of hard work to do to try to get to a balanced budget with what we have to work with, but certainly better than if it came in at 20% or even 16% like they were saying. So,
Right.
I would just I can pivot if you'd like, Mr. Chairman, into the budget.
So any last updates, questions anyone has? All right, let's jump in the budget. Let's hoping to run through this fairly quickly, relatively,
So I've got just real quick, big picture. So we submitted Omnibus 1, I believe on the 8th or 9th of January. That was the version 1. Our process in January into the first week of February is that the select board then reviews the budgets with every department head. We've gone through police and fire. We've done water. We've done assessor. We've done a few of them. We still have this Wednesday and coming Monday when we're going to get through the rest of our departments. So on the 2nd, I think there's going to be a little bit of trading between departments up at the finance committee and down in the select board, as we're going to have a little bit of an overlap. In the meeting on the 2nd or possibly the 9th or a special meeting in between, the idea is that the select board will basically define, if we're working with the town administrator and town accountant, we'll basically come to a conclusion of if and what we are looking to cut before we send the budget to version 2 to the FinCom to review. Okay. Due to timing, Chair and I have spoken many times about this. That's why there's a little bit of an overlap where you haven't seen version 2 yet, but generally some of the departments that you will be meeting right now before we give you that version 2 are the departments where there really aren't any dramatic changes year over year. Because some that have some more swings are the ones we want to make sure the select board gets through first, because some of those things might not even arrive to the FinCom for discussion if they're things we don't move forward. But I will say this just universally too. We do not have any levy capacity typically year over year, where other communities like Boxer might, and they don't tax up to the levy. They create some capacity. They have some capacity. We don't have that. We've worked really hard the last few years to find creative ways, whether it's ambulance revenue or other types of reorganizations within the organization, et cetera, to try to find ways to save money or create new revenues. And we've cut our budget every year to get to balance. Last year, we were, I think, 150,000 at the 11th hour to try to get it balanced. But impact of cutting it down does affect our certified free cash number in the following year. But we've put the last 2 years spending freezes on, either the last couple of months or last half of the year. And I said last year, with how tight everything's been and with the cost of everything just continuing to go up, there comes a point where you have to really have the conversations about an override. And we've had these conversations in the past. Those who've been with us in the finance committee for at least the last few years, there was a year where we had to make an adjustment, a 6-figure adjustment on the Masco debt, and it kind of put us underneath, but we bridged it for a year and we were able to bounce back and we avoided that override. we always try to find those ways to avoid it, and we will again this year. But as we talk about the budgets and we talk about what this year looks like, I just want everyone to be aware we're working as hard as we can to avoid those overrides, but it's just accumulation of many years in a row of not having many places to look to get to balance, especially when things, even a 9% insurance numbers, we carved it out of our operations, but we still have 150,000 in pension coming in this year. That's higher than what we expected. So it's always an ebb and a flow, and it's always some really hard work ahead of us. But I just want to say that out loud before we start diving in, because I think it's good to have a little bit of relativity while we look at the details. I can pause for a minute if anyone has any questions on that before we get into the budget itself.
Questions, comments?
I just think that overrides again are not misuse of funds or and it's just a matter of what you want to let the public know of why we need that override. It's just educating the public. It's not a misuse of funds. It's not staying within it's just 2.5% is not a reasonable in for a lot of things. And so if there is a need for an override, I think it should be carefully worded so that you're really letting the public know what they would not be able to expect from town services if that override didn't pass.
I agree with you, Heidi. And I think it's important too to note the number, and I know we've had these conversations over the past couple of years as you're cutting things, but the number of unfunded mandates and the costs that add. Next year, we're going to have elections. And given all of the different ways that you have to do that, that has a cost. I don't know where else you could possibly cut. And I think it's important to let the town know that these are the services that we provide, and this is what it costs. And let the town decide, do they want that level of service?
Yep.
Amanda, did you have anything else? Did I miss anything in the intro there? Any thoughts?
Nothing to add.
All right. And I'll just say one last comment too. So as we're working through what this looks like, if an override is, you'll know in the warrant that it does have language. It's basically the way we did it last year with the two components of base budget and an override portion to it. At this point, anything highlighted is simply just placeholder language. There's nothing saying this is what it's going to be at this point. They haven't even had those conversations with the select board at this time. So we'll work with the select board and with the finance committee, and we'll make sure as we go through the process together. To your point, Heidi, I think we want to make sure we articulate it in a proper way of sort of what's insurances, pensions, those types of things that have continued year over year, are having a major impact and will continue to. So, thank you. So, does everyone have their omnibus? Wait.
Mm-hmm.
I put the blurry background on for the first time. I can't even handle this. Okay. There it is. You guys all have one of these? Hopefully you're looking at it.
Yeah.
All right, good. So first of all, Amanda put some incredible work together. We've been working with our department heads since September on this. Multiple meetings, multiple discussions with every department head, big or small. They all submitted their budgets right before the budget package went out right before Thanksgiving. We got them back right before Christmas. And then Amanda aggregates everything together and kind of identifies sort of things, double checks the work, but especially on the salary and wages components of it. And then her and I sit down and we start looking at it together, and then we make final tweaks before we submit it to the select board and to the finance committee in the version 1. That's, again, the overall process. So if you look at the first line in here, the moderator, there's no changes. And then you go to the select board department. Basically, it's just adjustments based on the contract, as well as the increases that all non-union employees are receiving. And then we drop down to select board expenses category. We added $108 for the warrant That's just a small increase. The preparation of the annual. It's actually the annual town report is the driver on that line item. So it's just small little costs that we anticipate that will go up this year in that. No changes in the special categories. We do feel confident now that some of our larger litigations fallen off that that'll stabilize. ZBA many times has been a driver on the cost, and that's sometimes unknown when an application comes in or somebody's not adhering to the proper zoning laws and we have to pursue it. But right now we feel comfortable keeping that flat as well. So there's no changes in the other category. Finance committee, we reduced everything in that category. I'm just kidding. Sorry. It's level funded. It's exactly like it was. There's the $100,000 reserve fund. I think most everybody knows what that is. Maybe just for Michael's or repeating what we've said in the past. It's our safeguards. If something drastically happens during the course of the year, I know that Dan, our librarian, came to you early in the process in July this year saying we'd like to make that transfer to put it on your radar. I agree. We said, let's see how we do operationally before we make that transfer, but maybe come back to us later type of thing. So if something breaks during the year, that's a bigger cost item that we didn't expect. A lot of times that's where we fund it. But then if we skip the accounting department, the assessor's department, if we go past the treasurer's department, we then go to the town hall expenses. Not much changing in here. We added 1 hour for Mike, our facilities person. He is one of the best deals we have in town. He's the facility manager for the Georgetown Public School District. Does a handful of hours plus for us each week. And, we had a leaky drain pipe in the men's restroom on the first floor. Mike came in, just fixed it himself, cost us no extra money. Would have cost us probably a few $100s from a plumber to come in, if not more. So, and then he coordinates a lot of the excess work, like elevator repairs on the weekend or something, which just happens more times than not, unfortunately. He'll be the one running point on that. But it's this increase includes both the hour plus the 3% escalator in there as well. And then the rest of the town hall operational budget, the only one I'll really focus in on, unless there's any specific questions, the Munis software to 2370 is a contractual 4% increase. Munis is our back-end software backbone and our software for financial systems. It really is our lifeline. So we try to negotiate good prices on that as best we can. 4%. Well, hopefully in the future we'll see that come down a little bit. That is what it is. And then I will note that we have a $2,666 increase for the computer other. Debbie and I last week were talking about that. We relooked at that a second time, and I think there might be a need to put a little bit more in there, but that is all basically contractually driven. Items include our third-party IT support, both our cybersecurity and our Danvers collaborative, our Dell Cloud emails. There's 3 assessing softwares built into that. Board Docs, I think everyone's familiar with, Adobe, Zoom, fiber maintenance contract, EV chargers. Those are the types of things. There's more, but those are the types of things that are included in that. And then there's just a couple of nominal changes beyond that as well. We left the utilities flat. Probably would have put a little bit more in there based on actuals the last 3 years. I think last 3 years we've averaged 38,000 in electricity as an example. We're at 37 in the budget. Probably could have bumped it up a little, but just for the sake of trying to be conservative, we didn't add anything there for now, thinking that we might be able to make it up in other places if we need to.
But Kevin, we have a contract on that, right? On the
We do.
electricity? But that's only for the wholesale electricity, that the distribution charges can change, am I right?
That's correct. So it's
Yeah.
it's the use. So like last year, if you look at like our gas bill, it was $9,000, $9,200 last year, but the prior 3 years it was $3,900, $4,000, $4,500. Then it went up 92 because it was a super cold year last year, if you remember. We didn't get a lot of precipitation necessarily, but it was very cold. And so we're holding it flat at 4,200 on the gas. Again, that's one I might bump up just a little bit based on its usage, but we're holding the line, just trying to be conservative with our numbers.
Yeah, the electricity will be okay. Now you have timers on the common Christmas lights.
Every little bit helps. And then the town building electricity, that's for the 10 School Ave. Hopefully by next fiscal year, we won't own it. And so we'll save $700, but for now we're going to hold that line in there just in case. And then we have the PEG cable. PEG cable, there's two components. There's one component, which is we allocate some of the communications person's time to the website. They are responsible, the digital communications positions responsible for both our social media and our website updates. And so when it's website related, we book it to PEG. And then you'll see a dramatic reduction in our Boxford cable line. We no longer have Boxford cable. We have Topsfield cable. As you can see in the little box, if you're on the gallery right now, you can see that they're here. We have an individual who's a sole proprietor who worked for Boxford Cable, who, when we no longer associated with Boxford Cable, took over on an hourly basis, helping us with the broadcast. And so the contract's less with those supports we have now. And then
So is that still in that one line then?
we kept,
there's not a separate line item?
no, he's not an employee, he's a contractor, so he's below the line. He's not salary wages, and we left it the same. It titles Boxford Cable. It's technically not Boxford Cable anymore.
That's all I wanted to make sure. So it's still in the $32,000 number, right? Or am I looking at the right number?
Yeah, we think it'll be around, hopefully, I don't think it'll exceed that. It's a guess,
No,
just
it's fine.
hours,
That's
but
fine.
in the first year, it could be more, could be less. We hope it's less. We think it will
Yeah,
be.
so it's just row 205. I just wanted to make sure it's row 205. You don't have online, you don't have it on the, sorry, 15705, the account number 53050.
Yep, that's where Topsfield Cable and all of our broadcasts on Comcast and Verizon comes from.
Okay.
And then we have a $5,000 increase on the website. That's not. We're one of the last 3 communities that Civic Plus was supporting on the old platform that they're no longer supporting us on. That's our website. And they've told us 6 months, close to a year ago, that they were no longer going to support us, and we towed the line as long as we could. But now Stephanie Bellotti, our communications, is helping us transition to the new back end Civic Plus, and that with the services that they're bringing us on, there's a $5,000 increase. There will be some more functionality, so it's not just a cost to keep doing what we're doing. There will be some functionality improvements associated with the website on the back end for us, such as calendaring for permits and things like that, which we've looked at anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 costs just to have a standalone permitting software. So this actually might save us from having to do that and cover most of the costs of the upgrade anyway. So that's our PEG. And then we've got our clerk, Concom, planning board, zoning board. Then we head into public safety. None of these which we'll be covering tonight. Inspections, sealer weights and measures.
That's me.
There's sealer weights and measures. You taking that over?
No, I was curious. You know why I went up. I think that was on my my liaison assignment. Never did anything with it. But...
So he has not had our person has not had a raise in 10 years. And so he came to me and said, your fees are way too low, and we're going to would like to update these, and I'd like a raise. And I said, I will update these fees, and it's pretty fixed how much it is, because the same things get inspected every year, and we will return over $300 in new revenue. And so then we brought him up to $2,000 a year to provide that services. That's the backstory. There's not a lot of people that do it, and he's done a really good job. I get 0 calls on weights and measures. So, and And then another one area where we've done some good work in the last few years is animal control officer. Used to be a $10,000 stipend that we gave to a person. We went away from that a few years ago, and we began to pay Beverly and Kevin out of, I think, Wakefield or Reading. They basically pay $50 per call, and the cost has been significantly less as a result of doing it that way than a set stipend annually. So that was a good transition. So we're making an adjustment down based on actuals the last couple of years. We still want to carry enough just in case we have one bad incident and we have to house an animal for a prolonged period of time. But they've done a really good job and saved us some money. Animal inspector, that's Peter Mulholland. No changes there. And then the tree warden, you'll notice in this, nothing on the salary and wages component of it, but we do have a request for $7,900. We talked about this one many years. I think every year we have this conversation about the tree removal line for emergency purposes, and that it's underfunded, and that we max it out and then we find other ways to cover the cost. This is intended for the emergency storm where we need to remove a tree, versus I'm going to have to. Yeah, we have an article this year to plant and remove trees that'll allow us for when we do like very purposeful preemptive work. That's where that will come out of the free cash. This is the operating budget. Like a tree came down in a storm, we got to get it off of 97, and we'll call Iron Tree out. It's a few $1,000s per trip, if not more, depending on what they're removing. And that's part of the reason the increased request is what it is. I know Gary Wilds, when he comes in, if anyone has any specific questions on this one, can probably elaborate a little more. But that's generally what the request is and why it's in the budget this year. Is it okay, Mr. Chairman, if I just pause for 1 minute? I am going low on battery and I want to make sure I plug my computer in. Thank you.
So while he's doing that, any questions or any comments on what we've heard so far? We're about halfway through it, the budget, knowing that we're skipping a few of the major ones.
Nope.
I don't know if it's for Amanda or wait for Kevin, but back in the town budget, we have repair and maintenance, 34,000. Maybe we'll wait for Kevin to come back.
Which one? What line item?
I'm not sure. I don't have the omnibus visible.
Oh,
Okay, I'm afraid to try to put it up at the same time as the Zoom up. You know, I'll get bounced off.
Do you have a printed copy, or what are you looking at? Or are you just remembering?
I had some notes here.
Okay.
It's row 161, I think he's talking about.
Which one?
161, row 161.
This was in the town budget, Kevin. The
Yep.
You know, town repair and maintenance, $34,000.
Yep.
That's just for repair and maintenance of the town building, right?
Correct.
Because there's a separate warrant article for 35,000. It's called
That's right.
Town Facility Repair and Maintenance Fund.
Yep. So
And if
basically,
I'm correct, yeah, this is for emergencies where the department overspends their current maintenance budget, right?
the article for free cash is a fund that is set aside for when that occasion happens. This is for town hall. So basically, right now we have a $12,000 leak in the basement. When the building was redone, they didn't replace this sprinkler piece. Elevator goes to that. Elevator, we just spent 10,000, Amanda, or it was 8,000 on elevator repairs. So this item gets chewed up pretty quickly. But the one in the 34,000 or 35,000 in the warrant articles, it goes into a fund, and that gets split up as needed when different items pop up at the departments that overrun their budget.
Yeah, both of those are just for repair and maintenance, right?
Yes, like Chief Hovey, if he has a major roof issue, and we have to spend $10,000, we'll look at the fund to help cover that.
Yeah, but it's repair and maintenance. That's
Repair maintenance of the building. Yep.
yeah.
Thank
Sometimes
you
it's
for-
not clear the two funds. If I remember years ago, Che, they were both under the town budget years ago. And it was very confusing wording when you had two in the same, at least that's my recollection. Could be wrong, but, okay. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm my understanding of those two.
Yeah, and this has been kind of how we've operated at least the last 6 years. Is every department has their operational budget. We try to work within that, and if something pops up, that free cash allocation in the fund is the safety gap for us before we have to ask for any further funds.
Yeah, the town facility repair and maintenance fund is a warrant article, right? So that stays active until it's used up or closed out. Is that right, Amanda?
Yep,
Do I have
it
that?
is.
So it's
That's right.
Do we close that out every year since we apparently have a warrant article to replace it? How's that work?
So it rolls over. Go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say just exactly what you did. Usually it is spent and it zeroes out. I think last year with this, like we were spending freeze, like kind of keeping everything as tight as we could. A little bit did roll over last year. I want to say around 7,000.
But that was because we you'll notice in the operating budget for town hall, that's one of the places we put, like for instance, we didn't do the sprinkler repair from the basement, and it was $10,000 last year because we put a spending freeze in because we were so tight. We're spending for it this year. It's going to cost us another $1,500 because of the delay. But it's that's where if we had money left in the fund, we would have paid to do the sprinkler last year there, so that we had money fall back in free cash out of the operating budget when we did the spending freeze. But we didn't have any money there either. We spent it all last year because we froze.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, these are both strictly for repair and maintenance. That's the intention, not capital or other or operating expenses.
No,
Okay.
it's usually not enough money for capital either because we divvy it up in so many ways.
Got it. Okay.
okay. What's
The next
anything
one's
else
going to be our.
anyone has, or do we keep moving forward? Any questions to date, or do we want to other questions, or do you want to keep moving forward? We are at basically we just finished the tree warden is where we wrapped up from.
Streetlights is next.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So let's move through streetlights. Let's keep going.
So you'll notice streetlights, we've overrun it every year. You'll see it's been 39,000, 35,000, 39,000. And then we've held 33 and transferred it at STM. One of the things we finally completed, thanks to some help from Mr. Larson and our fire chief, Chief Collins Brown, and National Grid, is a full light retrofit. Our streetlights, I hope everyone's seen them, are now LEDs. We get a credit for that, and ultimately we believe our costs will be closer to the 33. Hopefully it'll be less than that 33, but we decided not to reduce it any further just for the sake of being conservative. But that's why it's been overrun and why we are keeping it flat. Trash. I could probably spend an hour with you on trash, everyone. I won't, I promise. But what I can say is
I won't
that
let you.
Hmm.
So let's just on the trash. Let's stay focused for now. We can come back to it after this. Let's stay focused on from where we are right now. So it's a $30,000 increase, right?
So our contractual obligation is a 4% increase on the tipping fees and on the service fee. So basically, mostly everything comes with a 4% increase. So you'll see that's why it's a 3.9% here. What we budgeted last year and what we're projecting this year is about $20,000 less than what we have, which is super tight, especially the first year of a contract. The reason why is our fixed tipping fee for trash is what it is. And our trash has gone down drastically due to our plan. Our plans worked. We estimated 33% of the population would need a second bin. Only 21% of the households have bought a second bin. So that's a significant change in behavior, and by behavior, cost. And in addition to that, on the recycling side, we've seen recycling stay pretty flat, if not increase slightly. And we've seen our composting go up, which is great. It's close to 10% now of each household do curbside composting. And that's weight that comes out of the waste stream and the incinerator and our cost every time somebody signs up to do that privately. And so when we push that, it's good for the environment, saves us money. The one thing that's actually hindered our savings that we should have realized has been our recycling variable rate for tipping. So we were offered in the Mello contract a variable rate based on whatever the market conditions are for recycling. And looked at 10-year historicals. It never went above about $60 a ton to recycle in the last decade. Even through actually, I went back 2 decades and we looked at the Great Recession as well, and it went up to about 60 at that point. We were hovering around 45 to 50 when we signed the contract. We're now at $105 for recycling per ton. Just want to make sure that's double what we've historically had. And we did have the option. I asked for a price to lock in a rate. I think it was 110. So it wasn't like this. We're still probably technically saving money with a variable rate, but due to commodities and oversaturation of the market, that is the biggest driver and why we're not seeing a greater savings. So as long as our variable rate on recycling doesn't go anymore, even though this is way more than we expected, we're trending to be about 20 under budget. So with a lot of unknowns, that's why we just stuck to the 4% total increase. It's probably, and I will say this last piece, we've seen almost double the revenue on from stickers to the second bins as well. So we were typically around $55,000 a year in stickers, in actual stickers costs of revenue for selling stickers. And now we have about $85,000 in revenue. We have about 474 second trash barrels out there. And 180,000 a year is the revenue comes off of that. I'm sorry. Yeah. $85,000, 180 per household per bin. So that's helped on the other side offset it, but we've increased our revenue on trash and we've basically stayed flat to budget is the takeaway.
Yeah.
And the only thing that hasn't played out as we hoped was the rate increasing on recycling.
What's the, for the 400 odd people, the families that have done the second bin, do we have any sort of sense on what a per bin per year cost is? I mean, I know it's not going to be always the case because your second bin may not be as heavy as your first. Andrew Prazar is joining us right now. Just so, if your second bin might not be as expensive as your first, you might not use it every time or whatever. But in general, a sense, how much a week is it costing us on a per week per bin basis?
When you say
so what I'm wondering is $180 a good deal? Are we making money? Are we losing money as a town? Off of that, we get revenue, but I don't know what that adds from an expense per side.
So the only expense is how much
Tippage,
people put
right?
in the bin and how much it costs us to get rid of that.
Tipping.
At $180, it reduces the amount of waste that's been put out based on a historic. So it's a different way to look at it is what they do is every month we get an actual amount of weight, how many tons of trash we put out and recycling. Right. And that we can compare back 6 years from what Republic and JRM before them was giving us for data. Our trash numbers have gone down. And so it doesn't necessarily depend how much people are putting in each one of their bins per se, because the overall is what it is. If that makes any sense. I don't know if that's answering the question. I think that's the best way I can, though, is we don't look at like what the per bin cost is per se. It's more of what's the overall tip, because before we had one bin plus stickers and people were putting a lot more out and the stickers were a lot less expensive than buying a second bin.
So we have a total, let's do it this way. We have a total of how many bins out there? We've got 473. What?
474 bins have been purchased.
474 plus every household has one, which is what, 2,600-ish?
2,300.
2,300, okay. So we have 200-ish, 2,750 bins, call it. 2,775 bins.
2775.
Yeah,
74, but
2775, call it that, 2775.
And year to date, the tonnage for trash is, well, the average monthly is 121, is 735.58 tons so far. So if you annualize that, it's like 1,400 or 1,500.
If you just take it as an assumption that every bin is equal and every bin goes out equally each time, then for a year, each bin is costing us, based on the 800, the 770 is costing us about $270 a year.
198 tons, or it's basically 2 tons per house, right? If you have 2775 number of bins and you have 2,774 bins, 35 gallons each, you divide that into 1,400 tons for the year. It's about 2 tons per bin. And a ton's $110. Yeah, $220 is the cost per bin. And then 180 is what we're getting in revenue. But I would say that it's not linear.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, ultimately, because they're not going to get used, your first bin is always going to be heavier than your second
right.
bin.
That's right. That's
you're going to use your first bin every week. Some of these people don't use their second bin every week. I don't have a problem with that. I just wanted to make sure we were in the ballpark. Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's a good analysis.
Or for those people who have a second bin, you can say to them that, if you use that, I'm not encouraging you to use it every week, but the people who are complaining or have issue, you can say, in some respects, that bin is costing less than what it costs the town to, if you fill that bin every week, it's costing you less than what the town is paying to empty that bin every week.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I just wanted to get that. Thank you.
Yeah, good conversation. So trash.
We have a guest member, Heidi. You want to introduce your guest?
This is Sally.
Hi, Sally. Sally has since left. Sally is I guess is Heidi's.
She's going to keep me company.
Perfect. I'm expecting my dog to come in at some point.
Sally's big.
If we're bringing pets, I'm inviting my kids down here.
Her sister's even bigger.
Okay, so any other questions on trash, knowing that we want to, and recycling, knowing we want to run through that?
That's an extremely interesting number, though. The average waste bin is $220 a year. That's what it's costing us to tip it. It's a useful number.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, Jay. The second bin would not be filled as much, so the 180 is probably break even or actually a little profitable. So I think it's very well positioned, personally.
Yep. Cool.
And then we'll keep moving. Gas distribution, no change there. Gary can talk to that when he comes in if anyone has any questions on that one. PNC, and no change on that. Landfill, it's sort of a little bit of an orphan. It technically falls under Board of Health, and John's doing a great job picking it up. Gary works with it. I work with it. So what you'll see in there is an increase last year. That was because of PFAS required testing at the landfill. And you'll see a small 3% increase on the contract for next year. We did bid this out during the course of this year. And the next lowest bid was $65,000. So we're doing pretty well. We'll then head into human services. And we'll skip Board of Health for when John comes, Council on Aging. I will cover the veteran services. You'll notice there's a $18,000 increase on that. Our VSO, Dick Cullinan, is retiring officially. And we've went to 2 different VSOs cohorts to get pricing and to see if they would provide services. Both instances would be part of a collaborative, not a regional effort versus us just hiring somebody. VSO services Dick had, for the last 16 years, never took a dollar raise. Basically got paid $1,000 a month. So the increase seems significant, and it is, but it's partly due to the really gracious contract we had with our current VSO resident, Dick Cullen. And so he's even said himself, I did you a disservice, Kev, by never getting a raise. I said, it's okay. We'll get through it.
Yeah.
So that's what that represents there.
Correct me
And
wrong,
then
he was just recognized last week. Was it last week or the week before? A week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, he was recognized, right?
Yeah, he won. He read the Mary Ellen McGee Award for Citizen of the Year at the Holiday Inn Green, and then the select board recognized him at their regular meeting, and I think some of you might have joined us for that.
Yeah.
And then no changes on the soldier sailor graves line item either. Library, when Dan comes in, we'll talk about that. Recreation department, I'll cover that one. Right now, we're putting in a level funded change. We had Scott Hubby, who was our long time, but since July interim rec director, who's just gave us notice. He's moving to Tennessee to work at the University of Tennessee. So we now have a vacancy here. And I think I mentioned earlier in the communications position, Stephanie Bellotti gave her notice as well on the communications. So one of the things we are talking about is, anytime there's transition, you always want to look to see if we're maximizing our efficiencies. And we've started to have some conversations about, not in the immediate, because we have to replace the communications and some of the rec components to keep the ball moving. But eventually, after maybe a month or two, is there opportunity to combine the positions and maybe actually shave some hours off by doing so? Meaning that we outsource some of the rec components somewhere else, some of the field rentals and chasing the money versus and really kind of combine the community outreach recreation component of the rec with the communications person. I think that might be a really great opportunity because both jobs ebb and flow during the year, and there might be opportunity if we just do something like that. But this is just a conversation we're having at the moment. It probably won't reflect in this budget, but anything we do would be at budget or less if we do any reallocation of people's time or look at the position differently in any way.
Kevin, quick question on the rec. The software, I think you guys put in last year for the MyRec software. Did you guys go forward with that?
Let me look at the software. No, we didn't. So we looked at it. One of the things we're actually looking at is actually through our Civic Plus upgrades, that they might actually have a number of the components in the rec software. So we might be able to take advantage of something that's inclusive of the new tools that we'll have versus this. But I also want to let the new rec person make that call. So that's why I'm not adjusting this line item. Because if Civic Plus doesn't work for them, then I want to give them the ability to move into this space with the software.
Okay, thank you.
So would automation reduce any of those costs or the need for people, like a different software? If you could book things online and.
So it wouldn't be necessarily that's part of the reason I talked about reimagining the positions a little bit. Because if we're able to, right now we're able to do about 50% of what I'm asking my communications person to do. Not for their lack of ability, because they're very efficient and they've been doing this for years. It's sometimes just change the dates on the flyer. But we want to do more videos and more outreach into the community, and like a lot of other communities have been able to do. The idea here is if we take the rec software and it automates it, that might make more efficiencies where if we combine the position, might be able to, it's part of the master plan when it comes to the position, Catherine. It's looking at it a little bit differently, but also maximizing technology to help us with it, because we're paper checks, paper printouts, and we can't be there much longer. We need to modify and move to something that's more effective, both for our people, but also for the customers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yes, no problem. Just moving on, Historical Commission, no changes. Memorial Veterans Day, no changes. And then Holiday in the Green celebration, it's never had any money anyway. So we'll continue that right now for the budget purposes as well. And then Morgan will cover the debt. I don't know, and as we'll probably cover that collectively with local aid as well. Unless you want to talk about that now, we can certainly talk a little bit about that with Amanda and I. But then we talked about the insurance number a little while ago. We're holding right now. Is that right, Amanda? We're holding 7.73.
That's pensions.
Oh, pension. Sorry. Thank you.
4.6 for, well, that's employee benefits and insurances.
Is the next one down. So pensions are going up about 144, and then the health, the insurance we're holding just short of the 11 at 10.46. So we have 321,000 in there currently. The 11% is reflective up top, but that's the net of it, 10.41 or 0.6. I'm on a very small piece of paper right now, and even my glasses.
So just back in for a second on the pensions. We talked 2 weeks ago. I want to talk with, I'd like, and anyone else who wants to participate, I'd like to talk with and understand what's going on there. I'm struggling with major increases like this when I don't think anything is materially changed, and what the stock market has done and what investments should have returned. I'm unsure why this, what is causing such a high number, and would like to understand that. We've had 15 on average last 2 years. It's been 15 and 15, 14 and 15 returns on the stock market, and even if you reduce that a bit for risk, lower risk tolerance, those returns you shouldn't be. I'm confused as to why we're seeing such substantial kick-ups in the increase in the pension amounts.
Yeah, and I know it's. I've had the conversation with the executive director Chuck Costa last year, because we had a pretty big increase last year as well, and
yeah, it was 6 and change.
Yeah, I couldn't get direct. Like, this is the algorithm, this is the numbers. It's a combination of a number of factors. Valuation with salary wages increasing every year, trying to hit to being solvent in an out year, to how many people your staff. It's very interesting how I could not get. I wanted like a very neat. This is how your number came to, but what we can do is we can make sure we reach out again this year to make sure we can ask those questions again.
I like to, and you make a good point. I mean, that's an example. If wages have gone up by 4.5%, and everything else is equal, you would expect a 4% increase or something, a little less than 4.5% because of net present valuing it, but a 4% or future valuing it. A 4% increase in the amount that the pension goes up for active active employees. So it makes sense, but I'd like to understand what else is driving that. It may not be here. To your point, it may be that the way the contracts are being crafted and written is causing an increase here, right? And you see that in some of the contracts that are being written where they accelerate the last couple of years, the salary. And so now what you have is you've been paying at a lower amount, and then you accelerate the last couple of years before retirement, the grade 12, the step 12s or the long lastings. It may be that, I don't know, that would have, because you don't have the time for that money to grow, it may have a greater influence. But I'd like to understand, us to all to understand that, because I think that plays in a number of different places with benefits, with salary negotiations.
I bet, Jay, it could be unfunded liability. They're trying to close that gap, but we ought to know. We ought to know what all this money's going towards.
But that unfunded liability was supposed to have been, not that it was supposed to have been actuarially planned so that it would be incumbent in annual year. And the fact that it continues to go, to your point, yeah. But I think that it would be some changes within to their assumptions, right?
Yep.
Do you have a breakout of what portion is from the schools versus everything else?
Yeah, so in the budget, we broke out both the pensions and we
Okay.
broke out the health insurance. So on the pensions, the town represents 962,000 of the total pension cost, and the schools represent 1,045,000 and change of the total pension obligation. A total of just about $2 million. And on the health insurance piece of it, the town represents 1.27 million, and the schools are 1.865 million of the health insurance, which this year, at that 11% increase, would be just short of 3.4 million total cost. Our health insurance number back in fiscal 22 was 2.2 million, and we are 5 years later at 3.4 million.
3.9, 3.39. That's another thing that I need to understand on the retirement side. I'm a little surprised by that number. I guess I don't understand the number. Principals, administration, and non-teachers, state certified teachers are in the pension. State certified teachers are not, correct?
I believe MTA has their own
covers those.
And they're on their own health insurance.
Right.
And Mr. Chair Praiser, I don't know if you can confirm that. If you're there.
Yeah, Unit A, so our teachers are the MTA pension, whereas Unit B, custodial principals, they are the town pension.
So I'm curious because that's where I'm a little confused, because ultimately, if you took this on straight numbers, because your principals are probably, some of your administrations may be higher compensation than some of the town employees, but your custodial is probably lower compensation than some of the town employees, so it averages out. This tells me, according to this, then that the school has 55% of the total population, if everything that's in the pension. And that seems high to me. I'm surprised by it. And I'm not
I don't have the numbers in front of me to verify it. I do know that 2 years ago, we looked at every single person in plan, whether it was health insurance and or the people that are in the retirement system, and we broke it out on a real dollars perspective. And I see Amanda unmuted, so she might have something to also contribute.
I didn't know if you had considered too, like the 1/3 of the central office people.
Yep, I did.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those that are in that bucket as well.
Okay.
And they make, a lot of them make decent money as well.
Yeah. To me, that's part of the administration. It's 1/3 of the central office plus the principals and the front offices of each of the schools. And then it's the custodial staff. What about the aides and assistants? Those are in the retirement in this as well, correct? So the non-certified, non-master's degree teachers, if you will. Andrew, at level A is just the true state certified teachers, correct?
Correct. Unit B is our paraprofessionals and aides. Generally,
Okay,
that's small dollars because they're not getting paid. Yeah. And they make up a smaller percentage of the total employees population.
Yeah. But those would be included in the in our retirement numbers as opposed to MTAs.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. All right. I mean, I'd love to see numbers, just straight numbers, Amanda, if we could, just so I can understand that. How many people are active and retired out of the town, and how many are active and retired out of the schools?
Do you guys have Morgan coming in at all? Because he's owns these accounts, and I know he did a
Okay.
deep dive in there.
Okay, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe you guys, Kevin, you and or Amanda, or I remember who has.
That's me. I
Yeah.
can email Morgan.
Okay,
Thanks, Michael. And when I see him, I'll mention it too.
yeah, okay, thanks.
And then that's really it for discussion purposes tonight, for the town's budget. Like I said, the rest will be covered with the department heads come in over the next few weeks, but there's not anything drastically changing, and anything that we made adjustments to Oxford Cable and the negative, and then some increases in different contractual obligations. Everything's basically flat. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing it. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Kevin.
No further questions? In that case, I was hoped we'd be done at 8 o'clock. Kind of close. Is there anything final before we jump to, checking just next week? Let me pull it up. Next week, we've got clerk, accounting, conscom, board of health, council on aging, treasurer, library, police, and assessor. But anybody have anything that they want to raise, discuss? Motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any final discussion before we vote on that?
So there's no meeting tomorrow night, right, Shay?
No meeting tomorrow or Wednesday. Those will be deleted. Those were in case, though, just
Okay.
doing it. That's correct. Good
Okay.
question. Those were this meeting, but we could do it this way instead. All right. Heidi,
Aye.
Michael Canaris,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Che, aye. Everyone have a great evening.